The Philippines lags many neighboring countries in infrastructure development and traffic congestion, among many other transport issues. But thanks to science and technology, local scientists and engineers are coming up with innovative solutions to improve our mobility. Joining us now is Mobility Vision Plus CEO and DOST Balik Scientist 2022, Syrus Gomari. Engineer, thank you so much for joining us. Your expertise is sustainable urban mobility planning. Taking a look at the transport issues in Metro Manila, what are the problems?
There are many, but if I were to focus on one, it would be the lack of properly aggregated data and to centralize the data. We do have data, but it's very disaggregated and fragmented. Somebody's collecting for data for cars, somebody's collecting data for cycling. But the reality is, if we want to solve the very complex problem of mobility within a mega city like Metro Manila, we need to do the analysis together in parallel to understand what's affecting what solution actually works better if you compare it to another solution. So my focus, through Mobility Vision Plus, and what I'm doing with my engagement as a Balik scientist is focusing on the data aspect, what we can do with the data, and what decisions or recommendations can we give to our decision makers.
Well, calling on our decision makers and our government officials, we have to have an aggregated data system for our transport system. Let's take a look at EDSA, which basically interconnects many of the Metro Manila LGUs. Is it the right move to move the bus lane from the right, extreme right, to the middle?
Yeah. So it's a good first step, I would say, because it's more organized now. So you don't have that many interruptions in the trip. Because back then, when it was on the right side, the interruptions were constant. Like every few hundred meters, cars coming in and going out. Now it's in the middle, and there's only one lane. If we had at least two lanes, it would be better because we could increase the capacity.
Yeah, but we can't expand EDSA anymore.
Yes, and
so is the solution then more elevated trains, the subway, which is now which has now started construction?
So we have to reallocate space, right? I mean, the entire congestion problem is a space allocation problem, and we have to focus on allocating space to move more people and not vehicles, because the average passengers in a car, it's like 1.5, something around that. But a bus, I'm 100% sure in peak hours that bus probably carries 80 passengers, and then that's why it becomes a space capacity.
But your suggestions, are they still possible to implement?
Yes, for sure.
Is it realistic?
Yes. If we want to look at an example, we have to look at Europe. For instance, Europe had this same problem 30, 40 years ago when the car industry was really booming during those years. And we got to that point probably, I would say 15, 20 years ago, and we haven't really done much to actually fix this problem. We're still in the trajectory of trying to force more cars on our streets, but the reality is we have to play with our constraints. And the constraint is our space, and that's constraint that we have. If we compare it, it's actually a gift for us because then it's easier to push for sustainable options.
So are you saying then, engineer, that when it comes to sustainable mobility, we are 3 to 4 decades behind Europe?
No, this is the beauty of technology. And that's actually what I'm doing in Mobility Vision Plus, to prove that the solution we're offering for sustainable mobility, just as simple as pushing for better sidewalks or better bike lanes, protected bike lanes, better public transport. We can do this easier. We can provide evidence much faster because we have tech.
But is it the right thing to do what we're doing at the moment? Those bike lanes in some of the major LGUs and on EDSA? Because I still get to see a lot of the vehicles eating up into the lanes of the bicycle lanes.
So yeah, again, it's a good first step. I think it was a very nice thing that came out of the pandemic. I mean, despite the other negative things. But we have to do way more, right? We have to treat our bike lanes like like a product, like we want to sell a product.
Well, Filipinos have to be disciplined and respect that lane.
That's definitely true. But if we want more people to cycle, we need to provide other measures that actually support cycling.
And what are these other measures?
Yeah, and the first thing is make it protected, fully protected, separate from car traffic. First, we have a big problem with driving behavior, so we want to protect our cyclists. The next thing is we want to make it comfortable, right? So we need to make the bike lanes even. The surface should be even. We need to provide greeneries because unlike Europe, it's a tropical climate. So we want to protect our riders from heat stroke or any of the negative impacts of heat that can cause on the human body.
All right, you studied in Europe. You're now back as a Balik scientist, 2022, and you have observed, the traffic, the roads here in Metro Manila. What about other LGUs outside of Metro Manila, in the Visayas and in Mindanao? Where would you say, which LGU has the most promising plan for sustainable urban mobility planning?
So this is mostly based on experience. I haven't really been to this specific LGU. I would say Iloilo City, based on what I've seen online. I don't know on ground what is the situation right there. But
from the plans that you've seen?
From the plans that I've seen, Iloilo City seems to be a step ahead. And they also won the Mobility Award last year, I think? I guess that says something, right? Yeah.
That's one template that maybe other cities could follow going forward. And you just started an engagement with 2 LGUs in Metro Manila. What are your initial findings?
Yeah. So I can break it down into 3 aspects. This is in relation to how I'm conducting my engagement with them. First is, again, the data aspect. What I'm building here for them is that we're going to have a centralized system where we also help them collect the data. We want to gamify data so the crowd helps us collect the data. And the second aspect is usually LGUs or national government, when they do have the data, they're not so certain what to do with the data, right? So we're also providing that. We want to automate the analytics for that, so it becomes easier from them. And then once we have the evidence of why certain measures work, even if not in the Philippines, like let's say some measure in Europe work, and then we want to see how we can transfer that to our local.
And when will these findings of these 2 Metro Manila LGUs be revealed?
Well, my plan is, I would say in 6 months. We can reveal at least.
So you just basically
findings.
started your findings?
Yes, yes.
Do you think that by attaining sustainable urban mobility, this could make the local economy more efficient and grow even further?
Much, definitely. We need to
It improves productivity.
Exactly. Because we don't just want we want a livable city, right? And the biggest aspect there, one of the biggest aspects, is having a functional transportation system. And to do that, we need to push for sustainable mobility. Otherwise, no one's happy. Even the ones who choose to drive a car, they don't end up, because it's unproductive time, right? When you drive your car. But like in Singapore, for sure, it was very convenient and everything.
Well, you studied in Germany. It's great that you're bringing the best practices from Europe back here to the Philippines. Is that why you're now with the DOST Balik Scientist program?
So it was actually, everything just came together. It was about late last year in December, I would say. I had this idea of using tech to help cities to get to sustainable mobility much faster. And I tested, I did some tests at home. And then I said, maybe this would be really applicable to the situation in the Philippines because of the context that I'm using it actually as an opportunity that our mobility is so bad because more people want change actually. Right? But if I try to implement this in Europe, maybe it won't be as interesting because the problems there are not as complicated as the problems we have here. And then suddenly I saw the Balik Scientist program completely by accident, actually. And I was like, this kind of just fits together, right? I might as well try to apply to this, see what happens. And then work out, and now I'm here.
Well, all the best. Engineer, thank you so much for coming back to the Philippines and sharing with us your expertise from Europe. Engineer Syrus Gomari, Balik Scientist 2022 and the CEO of Mobility Vision Plus.
Thanks, Rico.